All right. So Mother is fairly certain that there are good things about the Herdmans. Why is she certain that there's something good about the Herdmans?
They like learning about Jesus.
Yeah.
Case.
They like learning about Jesus.
They like learning about Jesus, and when she told them the story,
They were super interested.
they were interested
And they wanted to kill the bad guy.
and they wanted to destroy the bad guy. They were hoping that the bad guy would be the
Dead. Tortured.
killed, which isn't great, but all right. At the next rehearsal, Mother started again to separate everyone into angels and shepherds and guests at the end, but she didn't get very far. The Herdmans wanted to rewrite the whole pageant and hang Herod for a finish. They couldn't stand it that he died in bed of old age. It wasn't just Jesus he was after, Ralph told us. He killed all kinds of people. He even killed his own wife, Leroy said. And nothing happened to him, Imogene grumbled. Well, he died, didn't he? Somebody said. Maybe he died a horrible death. What did he die of? Ralph shrugged. It didn't say. Flu, I guess. They were all so mad about it that I thought they might quit the pageant, but they didn't. Not then or ever, and all the people who kept hoping that the Herdmans would get bored and leave were out of luck. They showed up at rehearsals right on time and did just what they were supposed to do. But they were still Herdmans, and there was at least one person who didn't forget that, not for a minute. One day, I saw Alice Wendelkin writing something down on a little pad of paper and trying to hide it from the other hide it with her other hand. It's none of your business, I said. It wasn't any of my business, but it wasn't any of Alice's either. What she wrote was, Gladys Herdman drinks communion wine. It isn't wine, I said. It's grape juice. I don't care what it is, she drinks it. I've seen her 3 times with her mouth all purple. They steal crayons from the Sunday school cupboards, too. And if you shake the happy birthday bank in the kindergarten room, it doesn't make a sound. They stole all the pennies out of it. I was amazed at Alice. I would never think to go and shake the happy birthday bank. And every time you go to the girls' room, she went on, the whole air is blue, and Imogene Herdman is sitting there in the Mary costume, smoking cigars. Alice wrote all these things down and how many times each thing happened. I don't know why, unless it made her feel good to see in black and white just how awful they were. Since none of the Herdmans had ever gone to church or Sunday school or read the Bible or anything, they didn't know how things were supposed to be. Imogene, for instance, didn't know that Mary was supposed to be acted out in a certain way, sort of quiet and dreamy and out of this world. The way Imogene did it, Mary was a lot like Mrs. Santoro at the pizza parlor. Mrs. Santoro is a big lady with a little skinny husband and 9 children, and she yells and hollers and hugs her kids and slaps them around. That's how Imogene's Mary was, loud and bossy. Get away from the baby, she yelled at Ralph, who was Joseph, and she made the wise men keep their distance. The wise men want to honor the Christ child, Mother explained for the 10th time. They don't mean to harm him, for heaven's sake. But the wise men didn't know how things were supposed to be either, and nobody blamed Imogene for shoving them out of the way. You got the feeling that these wise men were going to hustle back to Harold as fast as they could and squeal on the baby, out of pure meanness. They thought about it, too. What if we didn't go home another way? Leroy demanded. Leroy was Malchoir. What if we went back to the king and told on the baby where he was and all? He would murder Jesus, Ralph said. Old Herod would murder him. He would not. That was Imogene, with her fire in her eyes. And since the Herdmans fought one another just as fast as they fought everybody else, Mother had to step in and settle everyone down. I thought about it later, though, and I decided that if Herod, a king, set out to murder Jesus, a carpenter's baby son, he would surely find some way to do it. So when Leroy said, what if we went back and told on the baby, it gave you something to think about. No Jesus. Ever. I don't know whether anybody else got this flash. Alice Wendelkin, for sure, for one, didn't. I don't think it's very nice to talk about the baby Jesus being murdered, she said, stitching her lips together and looking sour. That was one more thing to write down on her pad of paper, and one more thing to tell her mother about the Herdmans, besides the fact that they swore and smoked and stole and all. I think she kept hoping that they would do one great big sinful thing, and her mother would say, well, that's that, and get out the telephone and have them thrown out. Be sure and tell your mother that I can step right in and be Mary if I have to, she told me as we stood in the back row of the angel choir. And if I'm Mary, we can get the Perkins baby for Jesus. But Mrs. Perkins won't let Imogene Herdman get her hands on him. The Perkins baby would have made a terrific Jesus, and Alice knew it. The way things stood, we didn't have a baby at all, and this really bothered my mother because you couldn't very well have the best Christmas pageant in history with the chief character missing. We had lots of babies offered in the beginning, all the way from Eugene Sloper, who was new, he was still red, up to Junior Caldwell, who was almost 4. His mother said he could scrunch up. But when all the mothers found out the Herdmans, they withdrew their babies. Mother had called everyone she knew trying to scratch up a baby, but the closest she came was Bernice Watros, who kept foster babies all the time. I've got a darling little boy right now, Bernice told Mother. He's 3 months old and so good, I hardly know he's in the house. He'd be wonderful. Of course, he's Chinese. Does that matter? No, Mother said. It really doesn't matter at all. But Bernice's baby got adopted 2 weeks before Christmas, and Bernice said she didn't like to ask to borrow him back right away. So that was that. Listen, Imogene said, I'll get us a baby. How would you do that? Mother asked. I'd steal one, Imogene said. There's always 2 or 3 babies in carriages outside the A&P supermarket. Oh, Imogene, don't be ridiculous, Mother said. You can't just walk off with somebody else's baby. You know that. I doubt if Imogene did know that. She walked off with everything else. We just won't worry about anymore about a baby, Mother said. We'll use a baby doll. That'll be better anyway. Imogene looked pleased. Doll can't bite you, she pointed out, which just went to prove that Herdman started out mean right from the cradle. All right, so just a little side note. When in the old days, when mothers went to the store, they would take strollers and they would go up to the store. They would leave their stroller with their baby in it and go and get their shopping done and then come back out because they would only be in there for a little while. This was before there was a big danger of kidnapping. It just wasn't something that people thought about kidnapping happening. And they were right inside the store. That was usually just like one layer, and they could pretty much see their baby the whole time. But that was just kind of, the baby was usually sleeping, so they just leave the baby out in the stroller. That was not something that would happen today, but that's the way it was back then.